Himalayas, the highest mountain ranges in the world, जिसकी खूबसूरती, स्ट्रेस, पाप, सड़क हो या राइटर्स ब्लॉक, सब दूर कर देती है। मुझे भी अपना राइटर्स ब्लॉक दूर करना था, पर मुझसे उतनी मेहनत तो होने से रही। So instead of packing my bags and going there, I decided I'd watch trekking videos, hours of them, and I did. Well, I did until I found God. No, I'm kidding, I did not find God. But I found something close, I'll tell you. I found the Nanda Devi pilgrimage trek, which was a bit strange to say the least. How strange, you ask? Let's see, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 100,000 skeletons stuck in a lake 16,000 feet above the sea level. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they're 1,000 years old. Strange enough for you now. बस फिर क्या था? I decided, हर बार की तरह, to take you on this very non-consensual deep dive into the Roopkund Lake mystery. So let's start the video. Amidst the Trisul ranges of Uttarakhand, at a height of about 5,000 meters, lies the glacial lake called Roopkund. It was first discovered in 1942 by a British ranger. He saw hundreds of skeletons, fresh skeletons with flesh and hair still on them. This definitely got him sus. The British first thought that they were the bodies of Japanese soldiers who tried to infiltrate through the Himalayas during the military sunburn of the 1940s. That's right, World War II. However, the apparent age of the bones dismissed the idea completely as quickly as their war paranoid monkey brains would come up with it. Expeditions were started by the Anthropological Survey of India in 1956, and they dated the bones to be 500 to 800 years old. But how did hundreds of bones end up at this one lake, which is 5 days away from civilization in the mountains? And more importantly, was it some sacred ground for human sacrifice? Or just some Tibet brown traders who lost their way? Were they remnants of war maybe? Or it was just an open cemetery? Or
coronavirus!
of the skulls that were studied, some of them showed really shallow groove on their forehead, which was almost like it was weathered away, while some of them showed severe signs of head injury, which can be caused by blunt force trauma or by some heavy object hitting them on the head from above. A little more in-depth research on this was done by Oxford, where they found that the skeletons they had as sample were around from 800 AD, and they all died around the same time to each other. These scientific analysts quickly discarded most of the main theories. They were not remnants from an army. There were bodies of men, women, and children in them. So it couldn't have been an army. There were no warheads or spearheads found except for just one. No signs of an epidemic disease, no signs of a ritualistic murder-suicide. In fact, most of the people that died were healthy and around their teens or 20s or 30s. There was another theory though, a very simple one at that. A group of travelers was simply caught in a huge hailstorm and could not find shelter in that surrounding and vegetation around the lake. And eventually, over the years, snowstorms, landslides, avalanches brought all those bodies inside the lake, and that's what killed them. So yeah, hundreds of people got their skulls bashed in because nature thought, 3D pinball. Up until very recently, this mystery was considered solved with this explanation. But wait, wasn't this a pilgrimage trek? Where are the gods? What are they doing? The people living in the villages below Roopkund had their own explanation to it, which was passed down as stories and folk tales. So this pilgrimage is supposed to be done in the honor of Nanda Devi, who is an avatar of goddess Parvati, who is supposed to be living there with her husband Lord Shiva. Long ago, Nanda Devi decided to visit a kingdom whose king and queen treated her poorly. Disappointed by their behavior, she cursed the kingdom, unleashing drought and disaster upon them, infesting the milk and rice with maggots. Now, in order to please the goddess, this king decided to go on that pilgrimage himself. But he liked some entertainment, so he took some dancers and whatnot with him. Unfortunately for him, it was in violation of the sacred nature of the pilgrimage. This king, I tell you, now furious at the earthly pleasures being displayed, Nanda Devi cursed the dancers down a pit which is still said to be visible high in the mountains. Then, according to legends, she sent a blizzard of hailstorms and whirlwinds and whatnot, which swept every pilgrim that was on that part of the trek and swept them down to this lake, killing them and their skeletons as a warning to everybody who would disrespect the goddess and the honor of Nanda Devi. So yeah, the villagers were living on a scientific breakthrough theory without even knowing about it for years. just villager things. However, everything was about to turn on its head. You see, in 2019, another research team took to the Roopkund trek to carry out further researches on the bone themselves. They took samples from 39 different skeletons and sent them to labs around the world for testing. What these tests came up with changed everything we knew about what happened at Roopkund. Earlier, those skeletons that were found to be 500 to 800 years old by radiocarbon dating, they were not exactly accurate because the technology was fairly new at that time, only 10 years old. And now in 2019, when it has been mostly perfected, we dated them more accurately and it changed the whole picture on the hailstorm theory. According to the old data, all of the bones that were in the lake should have been around the same age, but that was not the case. The older ones were more than 1,000 years old from the more recent ones. And what could be more bizarre than that? Well, they found two different genetic pools in that lake. One of them from South Asia, which is fine, India's from South Asia, makes sense. But the other group, who was supposed to have died at around the 19th century, were from the Mediterranean, more accurately from Crete. Yes, Tulsi ka dusra pati has entered the chat. It was a baffling discovery. A bunch of people from the Mediterranean traveling all the way to India on some pilgrimage trek to a lake 16,000 feet in the sky. Why would they? And even if they did, there would be some record of it happening, right? Because it would have been big news even back then, especially if all of them disappeared like anything. But despite their extensive research, well, they just went. They found nothing. They tried to talk to villagers, they tried to look through historical records, they found nothing. Zero. Now, obviously, there could be some truth to our previous theories. Like, we could assume that there's a certain group of people that died by the hailstorm, especially with there being a huge story and folklore surrounding it. But with newer discoveries, with the skeletons, especially the older ones, having been found to have died in 3 or 4 separate events, it's not possible for them to have died in that hailstorm, because one giant hailstorm killing hundreds of people is, let's say, possible within 100 years or 400 years. But in the same spot, that's like getting hundreds of kilos of gold and molding them into mini Coopers of gold and painting over them in 7 seconds. Not happening. But I'm serious, it's not happening. As for the bones of the Mediterraneans, that one genuinely is a total mystery. Nobody knows where they came from. Probably ganja फूकने आए थे, but किसी को नहीं पता. And no trade routes ever passed through that area for them to be trading through there. Some people even say that this might be the acts of thugs who killed people and dumped them in the lake over the years, but that's just not plausible. There is just no connection to thugs and a lake 16,000 feet in the mountains. So what did we learn from this? सिर्फ इतना ही कि इतने सब के बाद भी कुछ फ़ायदा नहीं हुआ, मेरी घंटों की मेहनत भी बर्बाद हो गई और आपके 15 मिनट भी. These guys couldn't, but आप ही बता दो कमेंट्स में कि इनकी मौत का जिम्मेदार कौन है. I'll take my leave and try to find new ways to waste both of our times. Actually, my love for Nanda Devi isn't over yet. This place has more secrets in it than fucking Harry Potter Part 2. So let's move on to the next thing Nanda Devi has to offer us. And let me tell you, the king might, but Nanda Devi doesn't disappoint.